Alright, what's up guys, and welcome to Retro Game Night, based off of Gaming History 101. I'm your host, my name's Fred Rojas, and tonight we've got kind of an interesting thing. So, we're going to be looking at Wolfenstein 3D on two 16-bit consoles. The first one being its natural release on the Super Nintendo, where it was available back in, I want to say 93, 94? And as you can see, it's kind of a modified version. It does have mouse support. I've never tried the keyboard and mouse, or the mouse, because I think one button opens the doors and one button shoots, and then you use the mouse to move around. Seems like a weird way. I have the mouse, but I don't know if I want to try it. Anyway, real quick, the reason we're doing this is because recently somebody ported Wolfenstein 3D to the Genesis. Completely usable, completely workable on a flash cart. I know because I've tried it, and we're going to compare the two. So anyway, we're going to play about 5-10 minutes of this. It starts off telling the story of B.J. Blazkowicz, and as you can see right away, this is a modified version. The toolbar down at the bottom, very different from how it appeared on the PC. Additionally, the controls are okay. The graphics seem like enhanced and modified in ways they can be. Soundtrack seems different. It's a little more upbeat, things like that. But also, the graphics are a little bit blockier, and you can see that the amount of screen real estate is somewhat compromised. Now, when you start fighting guys, you can definitely tell the difference. The rooms seem slightly modified in their layout, but for the most part, they're the same. And no blood of any kind. So I'm guessing that was from a guard in a different room. This room's slightly modified from its original. But yeah, as you can see, the guards will come and things like that. And the sound is great, one of the strengths of the SNES. But yeah, graphically it's a little rough to see. You can also see that when you get close, you can tell it's using Mode 7 graphics in some way. No specialized chips or anything. You can also see all the Nazi propaganda. These used to be SS, you know, swastika eagles, and so were these, and this is supposed to be Hitler, and they've removed his mustache so that it's not Hitler. They made some changes to clearly make this... Oh yes, and the dogs have been changed into rats, seemingly, I guess, to make them, make you less of a terrible person when you kill them. The sound when they die is absolutely priceless. Wolfenstein 3D had a decent amount of real estate used up, just for random corridors and whatnot, so we're gonna look more into this, but it's interesting to see. But see, off in the distance, you can't even tell that was a guy down there. There's a secret in the exact same place it used to be, but this is where you get the machine gun, which is quintessential to beating this game, or level at least, with decent ease. See, at first I can't tell what's background and what's enemy, but clearly we know that answer. I think there's a treasure in here. There is. Okay. Oh no, it's bullets. It's fine. I could use 86 bullets. Alright, let's see. Now, on a D-pad, the controls aren't great, but at the same time, a lot better than keyboard and mouse for a guy like me. As you can tell, this early id iteration has almost no aiming. It's a very impressive engine that John Carmack and the boys at id Software created with a 4-man team. But at the same time, it was while this was the advent of the first-person shooter, it's important to note that this was the advent of the first-person shooter. So it wouldn't be until Doom that it gets a little bit more dynamic. But I have it on good authority. You may be getting more information about Doom than you ever bargained for, and maybe a long-running project will finally find its way into fruition. This is the crazy strafing guy. He's usually responsible for my death in the harder versions of the original. I almost wonder if these flags cover up like crazy Nazi propaganda that they just couldn't find a good solution for. Anyway, again, this level seems moved around and stripped for some reason. I could be wrong, but it just doesn't feel quite like the original. But there we go. Took me 4 minutes to get through that, really? Wow. Okay, well, I'm going to play one more level, and then we'll call it, but this is just like a quick intro to Wolfenstein. Walking in circles is no big deal. You can go push up against anything. It's fine. These are the armored machine gun gunners. There seems to be, much like the 3DS, there seems to be like a sweet spot. Like if you can look at it from specifically this angle, you'll be okay. Naturally, I find all the shortcuts and secrets are still where they're kind of supposed to be, but... Nearly died. You can see BJ doesn't look like he's dying when he gets all bloodied up and roughed up, and doesn't even really look like BJ, but not to be a dick, kind of looks like a guy who could be named a BJ. Kind of looks like a douche of some kind. Let's see here. Not to suggest, actually, to be clear, that BJ Blazkowicz is a douche, because BJ Blazkowicz, as we know, is an amazing human being, especially for those who played the original, or the new one, but I think I found my way all the way back to the beginning. Good for me. This is something very common for first-person shooters of the era. You can get lost. Very lost. For long periods of time. And never know your way out. Eventually, by hook or by crook, where you need to go comes clear into view. Not that it did here, but... Alright. Lots of pushing on tiles, lots of... Oh. So this was the way I was supposed to go. How about that? Basically the rule was if you kept bumping into bad guys, you were probably on the right track. Saw some sweat. It's an old Mortal Kombat trick. But it definitely goes to show, and if you haven't heard the newest Gaming History 101 where I made fun of this, definitely goes to show why it has the box cover it does, and why this was even acceptable on the SNES at the time it was, because the game is rather violent for the time. It was even given a PC-13 rating by id's internal department, which means about nothing, but it is the id equivalent, self-policed equivalent of a PG-13, so there is that. Now, I'm fairly certain that the Genesis version we will look at in a sec is a direct port, like they basically just ported it to the Genesis. There's got to be a way they did that without doing too much work. But that does mean it's going to be a different... slightly different game, as we'll see in a second. Come on. Runs at a decent frame rate, though. Decent resolution. I gotta give it credit, like, if you need a quick and dirty port of Wolfenstein to sell your 16-bit console, which it was a pretty big deal back then, I could see this solving that problem. However, the problem of where the hell is the end of the level, that's a problem I have to solve that I'm not doing a very good job. Been here before. Again, very common to anyone who's ever played first-person shooters back in the 90s. It's a real case of I've been here before. I think there's a map. if I pause, there is a damn map. Where's the exit? Is that the exit or is that the start? I feel like I'm basically looking at the exit. Let's see. It's either the exit or the start. Or it's neither. Or it's just a dead end and it looks clever. Why am I even bothering with maps? Okay. It's painting at the end, we know that. This will take me somewhere. This will take me back through the abyss I've already seen. It's a dead end. But apparently I haven't seen what's down here? Through here. Ha ha ha. That would have been so much harder in the real game. Trust me. Well, thank God for maps that I never used in the original game. It's like swinging your BJ Blazkowicz like he's a slow-moving boat. Bodies everywhere, and that's level 2 in the bag. Yeah, it took me so much longer. Anyway, alright, so that's the Super NES version. Now, let's take a look at the Genesis version. So we'll catch you on the flip side in 30 seconds. Alright, so as I realized I said right before this started, I said 30 seconds. You don't know if it's 30 seconds, but anyway, what you see here is what is basically exactly what you'd see if you had booted up Wolfenstein 3D in 1992 on a IBM or whatever, and these options look completely the same. What's really interesting is, and this is the Genesis, this is running on a Sega Genesis through a flash card, but the actual hardware, I'm running this on an actual Sega Genesis, and it has stuff like graphics, and there are actual filters you can put on. It's absolutely awesome. Anyway, I'm going to go normal, no filter, and let's compare these two versions real quick. So, here we go. As you can see, unlike the original game, like the PC, you've got all the episodes ready to go from the get. I think there was a 7th episode, but I could be wrong. That might have been DLC or something like that. These were the different difficulties. I love this, where he's like a baby, don't hurt me, he's kind of scared. That's the BJ Blazkowicz most of us know, and Death Incarnate. It's almost like a hint of Doom guy. I'm going to go Don't Hurt Me, because Bring Him On tends to be a little difficult if you miss what you're doing. But anyway, alright, so as we can see, a relatively significant part of the real estate is taken up here as well, but there's already a dead guy here, which suggests probably that, you know, BJ's killed him to get out. But anyway, this is a straight PC port. I mean, in every way, shape, and form. If you were to play the normal version, there would have been a guy there waiting for your clip. These rooms are mostly health. You have no reason to need them, but they didn't change the layout of the game as the difficulty changed, so these were basically just there to provide health if you needed it. A lot of people say that the resolution is better on this version. I kind of get that, because it's a little more clear as to what's going on. Guys don't tend to blend into the background, but at the same time. And while the sound doesn't sound as good as it did on the SNES, this is exactly what you would have heard back in the on the PC. As you can see, we killed a dog, complete with dog food. Again, this is through and through a direct PC port. and a pretty good one at that. It's running smooth. It's very nostalgic, and it's, in my opinion, a pretty technical feat when you consider it's on the Genesis. If you have a flash cart, I mean, you can do it in an emulator. It might almost be an easier way to run this game, but oh, and you can go back. Interesting. Okay. But in my opinion, the biggest draw for this is just all these sounds are directly from the PC. It might just be an easier way to run the game, but again, the more impressive side is if you actually have a Genesis like I do. You can play it on. The way I'm doing it is through a flash cart. There are many out there. The one I particularly care for is the EverDrive because it makes it real easy. It's prone to piracy, so please, kids, do not be a pirate. But it also allows you to play awesome things. Like a couple episodes ago, I did the Master System Smash, Melee, and now Wolfenstein. It's always cool when these things come out. Oh, as you can see, as we're talking about it here, the swastika propaganda, well, it's the swastika on the ankle. This is what this is supposed to look like. It's clearly Adolf Hitler. Resolution is much better. Each of these red flags is actually swastikas, because Wolfenstein 3D takes place, if you don't know, in Castle Wolfenstein during World War II. I'm sure you can probably already tell, but the layout is a bit different in this game than it was in the SNES version. I'm not quite sure why that is. Since this is a pretty, like, not to make it sound negative, but a pretty effortless PC port. They just found a way to get the PC version to run perfectly fine. And it's only 3 megs. I believe it was more than 3 megs on the PC, but I could be wrong. But this is definitely not the same setup from... Oh, there you go. Kill ratio, which they clearly didn't want to talk about on here. Do you want to save the game? Sure. Oh, sweet. And there's a save, which on the SNES I don't think I showed off, but it was actually a password. Sounded like someone was looking for me. It looks like I'm basically on the floor that's the dog kennels. Don't like killing dogs, but in Wolfenstein you really have no choice. And let's face it, they're virtual dogs, so no actual doggies were harmed in the making of this game. Okay. That's kind of the dead end. I haven't heard any "Mudleven," but it depends on what version you've played of this game. As you can see, I'm sure the skeletons hanging from the ceiling were not in the original game. But we also, in the SNES version, did not, or the enemy types ramped up seemingly much faster than this. We're still just fighting dogs and regular Nazi soldiers. We already had the blue bulletproof machine gun soldiers in the SNES version by this point in level 2, which again is very counter to what we had seen before. Layout seems yet again similar but different. I do love the treasure sound from the original game. Again, those nostalgic for the original game are going to find more of a what they're looking for kind of scenario than a more of a direct port. Something that probably reminds them of most of their childhood if they played it back then. or at least if you've played the original, it's going to feel a little more faithful. Whereas the SNES version was just like most, and I think it was officially either licensed or even developed by id. It's most likely just like they did the best they could to try to make a personalized version for that console, working with both its strengths and weaknesses. Okay, that's that side. Let's go over here. Eventually I will find the exit. Wait, I think that's where I came from. Shoot, I can't tell. If I killed that guy. No, I don't think I went this way, actually. Classic Wolfenstein. Classic MacGruber. It's best to just push in on every wall. You never know which one's going to be the secret you've been looking for. See? Oh no. The sound just triggered when I pushed up against it. There's a blue guy. Mein Leben! That's what I was looking for. Love it. Can't remember. They might even have a version that goes like Scheiße, which is German for shit. Just in case you need an explanation of that. And I'm sure most of you didn't, even if you didn't know what it meant. Somehow I was able to kill that guy from across the room. Which means you do not mess with BJ Blazkowicz. BJ Blazkowicz. I'm guessing it's supposed to be Jewish. Purely based off his name. Looks like a dead end, but I found a bunch of treasure, which is always important. Stats at the end. I gotta say, like, depending on whether or not you have this version, this is an enjoyable version of the game. No map, though, so I might be lost in these catacombs forever. Seemingly none of these were the way. Oh, that's how you switch weapons. If you have a 6-button controller, Y switches weapons. Oh, I don't think I've been in here. Oh! Oh, he says. Which means I might be on the right track. Remember what I said. Follow the live bodies, not the dead bodies. Ha 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 ha. Oh, but this might just be a secret area. It means good, but it means I'm nowhere. I'm not near my target, my goal of being at the end of this level. This could be near the end of the level. Ooh, you don't want to be close to those guys. They will kill you. They seem to be much more lethal at long distances, as these guys are only really effective up close. Fortunately, I'm on an easy enough setting that there's not too much going on. Also found the end, as long as this guy gets off my booty. And as you can see, BJ down there gets all bloodied and whatnot. What? Have I not found the key for the end? Is that what I need? Do I need a key? I think I need a key. Damn it. Anyway, BJ gets all bloody. There's the key. Yay! This is where I beat the level. And where we say, this is a faithful but adieu ending to the Wolfenstein thing. I'm gonna say I agree, though, with the many that have said, especially the person who made it, that this is the definitive version. If only because it's a direct PC port, which I understand is not authorized, and from a licensing perspective, plus a Super Nintendo perspective, probably was not going to happen. So anyway, if you've got it, if you got a flash cart, check it out. Peace. Kind of a modified version. It does have mouse support. I've never tried the keyboard and mouse, or the mouse, because I think one button opens the doors and one button shoots, and then you use the mouse to move around. Seems like a weird way. I have the mouse, but I don't know if I want to try it. Anyway, real quick, the reason we're doing this is because recently somebody ported Wolfenstein 3D to the Genesis. Completely usable, completely workable on a flash cart. I know because I've tried it, and we're going to compare the two. So anyway, we're going to put... Yeah, graphically it's a little rough to see. You can also see that when you get close, you can tell it's using Mode 7 graphics in some way. No specialized chips or anything. You can also see all the Nazi propaganda. These used to be SS, you know, swastika eagles, and so were these, and this is supposed to be Hitler, and they've removed his mustache so that it's not Hitler. They made some changes to clearly make this... Oh yes, and the dogs have been changed into rats, seemingly, I guess, to make them play about 5-10 minutes of this. It starts off telling the story of BJ Blazkowicz, and as you can see right away, this is a modified version. The toolbar down at the bottom, very different from how it appeared on the PC. Additionally, the controls are okay. The graphics seem like enhanced and modified in ways they can be. Soundtrack seems different. It's a little more upbeat, things like that. But also, the graphics are a little bit blockier, and you can see that the amount of screen real estate is... Alright, what's up guys, and welcome to Retro Game Night, based off of Gaming History 101. I'm your host, my name's Fred Rojas, and tonight we've got kind of an interesting thing. So, we're going to be looking at Wolfenstein 3D on two 16-bit consoles. The first one being its natural release on the Super Nintendo, where it was available back in, I want to say 93, 94? And as you can see, it's somewhat compromised. Now, when you start fighting guys, you can definitely tell the difference. The rooms seem slightly modified in their layout, but for the most part, they're the same. And no blood of any kind. So. I'm guessing that was from a guard in a different room. This room's slightly modified from its original. Yeah, as you can see, the guards will come and things like that. And the sound is great, one of the strengths of the SNES. But,